Hello, universe. It's 11 o'clock at night. It's the 26th of January here in the year, well, whatever you want to call it, but we'll call it 2025. And I guess that means that my guardian angel only has 60 minutes left to celebrate her 60th birthday. That's a weird time to sign on, I guess. But having not intended that, just realizing it in the moment, well, nobody else gives a shit about this. Well, maybe my comic book guardian angel, but if she's listening to this, I would be knocked over by a feather or by pause. Unpause. And yes, of course, the subject matter makes me uncomfortable. This weekend makes me uncomfortable. This whole stretch of November to the end of January. Easily my least three favorite months of the year, only because I seem to have to learn lessons of the most impactful kind during these months. And in true comic book form, my comic book guardian angel is transitioning into my comic book arch nemesis, or I don't even know if that would be truly the descriptor on which to place this character. But I'm not even going to get into the whole story of what transition has occurred that is creating this new role for who I thought was teaching me lessons for the good, but I think might be teaching me lessons for the karmically reversed. And I don't think I've ever explained that, but I'll get back to that in a second. So, as unintelligible as all of this is, yesterday was my dad's birthday, or would have been, his 85th birthday. But since he died in December on the 12th, we, the celebration of his birthday was no more. And while the rest of my family did get together in a gesture of camaraderie, I backed out of that. And that, I felt I had no choice but to do. And that's terrible. And that's what's happening with the closing of January, is no more of this nonsense, this karmic kickback, this these hurdles over which I cannot even clear. I just have to struggle to do my best to not let them set me back. And of course, when all of the narratives that you expected in life turn some other direction, it can be a very disorienting time. And when you discover narratives that you thought you had appropriately slotted into their proper channel, and discover, in fact, that that isn't the story at all, that I must have only been half paying attention because so much of that did I miss. Well, that's where 2025 is going to have to try to navigate choppy waters and come up with answers, because for whatever reason, it seems like the universe right now has me under hyper inspection and is misinterpreting me in spite of having this level of observational attention. And I don't even know if I'm able to voice what I mean here. So why don't I go grab my list? I might even stick this at the back of this thing, because boy, does this feel out of practice, or at least non-communicative to anyone but maybe myself. So on that note, 420, 421, 422, 423. I'm kidding. Not kidding about that 420 part, though. I did go hit the pipe. And while I did send my comic book guardian angel a video of me exhaling marijuana smoke once, I remember doing that. But I'm pretty sure that's not why why we're evolving into an antagonistic situation. I don't know. I really don't know why, which is why this is all comic book nonsense. But in that lack of full understanding sits a whole bunch of mistreatment that, frankly, leaves me at least discombobulated about how I thought I could read people's energy and intentions, and leaves me also unsure about anything that I have pursued romantically for the last year. It's been a shit show because, for whatever reason, my comic book guardian angel is some standard whereby I judge all of my current escapades, and none of them stack up at all. So to say this has been a year of reaction to a character who doesn't even actually physically exist in my life anymore sounds absurd to me, but it's true. And so the way that things have worked out in this last couple months and revealed themselves to me over the last, say, 3 weeks has given me a whole new dynamic on which to dwell and mull the lessons being handed out. And this one puts me in all kinds of states of uncertainty, where I think this person could be here to karmically reset my past transgressions against some of my girlfriends with cheating and lying and things like that. So am I being shown how devastating it can be to think you're supposed to be with somebody but have no opportunity to have that occur? Maybe. Because I know at least 2 people along the way who would have said I did that to them. So turnabout's fair play. But the fact that it's turned about in such a way as to have truly been egregiously handled against me in a way that I really do have the kind of complaint that could go to a court. But I would never do anything like that because A, I don't believe in that level of justice or injustice, and B, it would involve directly naming people who I have no interest in ever, well, really interacting with again, but certainly never would wish to cause them any kind of legal issue or job setback or anything. I just don't play like that. Even when I've been wronged, it's just not in my nature to go seek revenge or even vengeance, or even in some cases, I would suppose, my dignity. But if my dignity is all I have to give up to learn the lesson that's coming here, well, that doesn't seem like a high price to pay. However, I understand that in this country, the idea of swallowing your pride, allowing false and slanderous accusations to fester in a way that doesn't have you leaping immediately to your own defense. Well, again, I'm very comfortable with who I am. I know what I do. I know what my heart is, and I know all my intentions, as well as what my actions are doing and not doing. So in any way that I would relive the last 5 years of my life, I'm not sure I would change a single thing about it at all. So with as much of that confidence as I have about how I live my life and who I am, the fallout that comes. And it comes in ways that I know are here to make me rebalance, find another sense of who I am and what I'm capable of, teach me forgiveness, teach me understanding. And this is as harsh a lesson as I've ever had to contemplate when it comes to forgiveness. And I'm experiencing simultaneously the second harshest lesson I've ever had to live when it comes to forgiveness. All now happening as I speak. And these feel like ways that it's almost as if my life needed to rush to get here to show me this. Because this was something that my life couldn't maintain without exposure. And I wasn't going to get to where I need to be without learning the lessons that are right in front of me right now. And I'm 55. And I'm learning lessons now that seem to be the culmination of all the moral instincts and inclinations I've got in life. It's an odd place to be. But it's gratifying, I suppose. It certainly is life-changing. It's motivating. It is giving me a texture of humanity that I was missing. It's given me self-inspection points of view that I had never seen from these vantage points previously. So I do feel like I've gotten to know myself better. I do feel like I've gotten to see humanity's potential even more so. And I do know that I've been able to contribute my own best efforts throughout all of the challenges that I'm facing from 2023 and 2024. And I do have the easiest life on the planet, so I don't really pretend that this is what other people go through when I say challenges. But for me personally, coming to understand humanity, well, that is a challenge. And probably for you as well. I mean, the more you get to know people, the more you like them, or the more you get to know people, the more you wonder what the fuck's going on. Kind of both, right? Pause. Okay. For me, it's definitely I like people more the more people I get to know. I find something to like in everybody. In fact, I think that by default, I look for the thing in people that is least being recognized, that's most important to them to be seen, and try to shine some light on that if possible. And if someone's so content and well composed that they just present themselves as the true selves that they are, well, then I just always appreciate that level of disclosure and familiarity in a human being such as another one like me. But I don't run into that very often. In fact, for the most part, what I run into are people who are the protection with which they now move through their universe is fascinating. Everyone's got a different set of variables and triggered mechanisms to keep them safe from the threat that every other one of us is to each other, which to me is zero, but to everybody else there's like huge levels of threat assessment going on at all times with the people around them. And I don't pretend that there aren't threatening people in the world, but my silly comic book self that I am thinks even those who have the least coherence of sanity and are the least predictable in terms of what violence they may bring against thee, well, I don't know how much more you could describe somebody than you're describing Lily. And while Lily at 5'2" and 120 pounds wasn't about to overwhelm me in any capacity, her volatility was unparalleled. And it's not that difficult to help another person get through whatever it is that's driving them angry, if you're just willing to give them enough room in which to reset. And maybe that's 5 years worth of room. Sometimes it's not worth the effort, I get it. But everybody that's lashing out is just doing so because they're hurt. And while there may be a few broken tools in the drawer, it's rare. Most people came here and somehow, some way, Earth broke them. And I don't want to ever believe that there's another human being who, if given the chance to do good, wouldn't. I just know that on a planet so consumed with taking care of myself, well, the opportunities to do good are diminished. And the temptation to take advantage is exponentially increased. So with all those temptations and with the picture set like this, well, I see why there are people out there that believe everyone's out for themselves and everyone's just going to do whatever it is that they can do to get one over on you if you give them the chance. So if you're not willing to go into every situation armed to the teeth and ready to defend yourself against all attacks, well, then you're just waiting to be a victim. America is the land of the victim now. The way everyone chases down some level of victimhood to pretend that this is why I'm not living up to my potential because these stacked against me variables make it impossible. It's hard for me to know where to go with that because I know they're wrong first, but I have had such a pathway of the least resistance in terms of feeling set back by the society around me. Jumping into society for me is always invigorating. I like the interaction that comes with somebody I don't know. And it doesn't matter in what capacity that is. That's what I enjoy. If I could meet everyone on the planet, I would. But I don't think I have the time. I don't think I'm going to live to be 2,714, which is what it would take to meet all 8 billion of you, assuming that population decimation thing's actually going to happen. Because if there are going to be 18 billion of you, well, then I'd have to live a lot longer. And yes, I've done the math in the last 7 seconds of life, so I think it checks out. But most people aren't up for that. Most people don't even want to meet their neighbors. And they certainly don't have a blanket interest in meeting everyone on the planet. But to me, there's something fascinating about every single person. There's a story, there's a talent, there's a way of seeing the universe. There's something fascinating about all of us. And I believe that. And if I really wanted to know how fascinating humanity is, I think I'd have to know every single one of you and what makes you motivated and driven to do whatever it is your humanity came here to do. So I don't pretend this conversation is something that I can have with everyone, but I'm always looking for an opportunity to see if you'll meet me at that level and talk about what it is that really matters. And so last episode when I said I would surely love a world filled with wandering comic philosophers, well, let's face it, no, I wouldn't. I know you wouldn't. But there could be at least one per, say, 1,000 of us out there, maybe one per 100, if I'm willing to be greedy. But a world filled with people who can't seem to find motivation to do anything but solve the gravest problem, which is, why is our humanity moving us backward, not forward? Well, we can't all think about this, right? But that's all I think about. That's really all I think about. And then I look at the fractures that have occurred to create the situations that lead to this devolution of spirit and potential. And I think, well, you can clearly see that the problems with lying and leadership who's willing to tell us anything they want to tell us, even though that's not what's the truth or what's going on. These things don't help. But each one of us has, in some way, accepted a standard of community that's lower than we deserve. And I don't know if it's just one of those things where we're like, well, maybe it'll bounce back and everything will get normal again. Or if it's, well, as long as it's only going to get this bad, then I can live with it. So I'm not doing anything to make it any worse than this. Or fucking love it, man. Anarchy all the way. Let's see full chaos. Let's see what it looks like when the whole system blows up. But wherever you are on the look around the universe and try to find what's going the most positively, there ain't much. In fact, not many answers are even valid because it's so hard to find something that is on the upswing, that is truly looking like it's going to exceed its potential and do something great for humanity. And artificial intelligence obviously does not count. But as much as the current time of all of us experiencing this planet together is filled with upheaval, what it's really filled with is the potential to overcome the challenges we've seemingly forced ourselves to surrender to, like shitty leadership, or declining education standards, or skyrocketing costs of living, or fuckery with our food supply, or even more fuckery with our medical supplies. It's just a standard whereby I didn't think collectively we could arrive. This isn't us. This isn't humanity humming along. This is nothing but flat tires and goddamn empty gas tanks on the highway to hell. And so maybe more of us should be thinking about why humanity is in neutral/reverse when so much potential for greatness is on this planet right now. If you're not doing something to move humanity forward, why aren't you? And I know I also spoke about how the current challenges in some cases are insurmountable. Well, I don't know if I agree with that now. I said they were paramount, which they are. Insurmountable is the only insurmountable challenge that may be in front of us is a cataclysmic Earth event. Other than that, everything else is either created by humankind or something we're completely capable of ascending to the need of the challenge to overcome it. But if we're not willing to at least admit that it's broken, there's going to be no rescuing the systems and fixing them. Then we are headed for what is inevitably going to be what we deserve, which is our own thorough setback of the most devastating kind. But having seen enough in today's landscape to know that nobody can feel confident that the 21st century won't be the last one humanity is here for. Well, again, how much of that dread are you just foregoing, pretending doesn't exist, living with only when you have to read a story or article that tells you this is how real it is? All right, I'm getting too serious. This isn't where I wanted to be. This weekend is, I don't know. I've been dreading this weekend for 6 weeks, and now it's finally over, or about to be. And so maybe I should just sign off. Well, not before I give myself a little bit of a lashing here. Because, okay, I didn't really finish the thought about what porn has done to manipulate the expectations men and women have for each other in terms of relationship development. Because I spent too much time talking about what it has done to the boys without ever really addressing how I think it's really hurt the girls. Not that they're influenced by it the way boys are. Unfortunately, I don't think girls have the same level of intensity when it comes to what porn does to their brain wiring. But what it does socially affects girls way more than boys, and has done so in a way that I think leaves the girls in a situation of both hypervulnerability and distaste for the entire enterprise. So this isn't the night to get into that, but I understand that I have to get back to that subject matter for the lack of balance that I presented. And it's not that I have a lot to say here because I'm not a woman, but I have seen what society's expectations have morphed into. And when it comes to the measurements whereby we are quantifying potential mates, I think I have a little bit of experience with how the girls have looped from one set of criteria to a completely new one. And so that's in some ways been influenced by porn. So that I'll get to sooner or later. Let me put a note here that says I have to talk about that again. Okay. And then last review point that I have here is I said what's wrong with the boys and what did it do to the girls? But I think you can flip that around very easily and say what's wrong with the girls and what did it do to the boys? Both genders at the end of the 20th century and into the 21st got flipped upside down and shaken about in a way that was never perceivable until you can see the run of cause and effect that came. So when when women were given the opportunity to do anything they wanted, have a career, have a baby, have world travels, have 7 lovers, it's your choice. You are finally free to make those choices via things like birth control, the movement that it was feminism, the liberation of the woman from the expectation of baby making and cooking. The 20th, late 20th to 21st century woman is empowered in a way that is overdue and was a change that I fought for in my lifetime and believed was necessary for a civil society to progress. You can't have a society that has more value for one sex than the other. And that's how it was, or it appeared to be, in the 70s and 80s in terms of the setbacks women faced that men didn't. But I had, number one, obviously mistaken what I thought of was successful or what success looked like. And number two, had never taken into consideration just how much influence the community standard bearer, moms, and the families they directed, their nuclear relations plus whatever other web they were tightly knit into, how much they set a cultural standard for all of us to somewhat aspire toward. And that when the traditional role that was a strong figure in the household disappeared, well, it unmoored both sexes in many ways. But it left women with an expectation that success looked like what men had developed in a world full of testosterone-laden stupidity. And then as you entered that world and figured out just how dissatisfying it is, well, you got fucked. It's bullshit. And now the stigma against anything other than embracing your queen bee status is letting yourself down, disappointing your potential, not realizing the battles that were fought to put you in a position to take advantage of whatever it is that you want to do. Well, be seen to have value. Be seen to have produced something of genuine good, and be seen to have contributed to the betterment of the world in a way that is undeniable. Well, those were all things that were being seen by all of us as kids, among all the mothers that we knew. They were the role models. They were the ones whose influence was direct and substantial. And they were the ones that created a community for me as a child that I was not just hyper safe in, but constantly curious, always doing something adventurous and new, and always able to believe that I was surrounded by love and people who wanted the best for me. How many of you have that now? Any of you? Pause. Unpause. Okay, I should address this first. Obviously, I'm not going to speak to the staticky radio signals that evolved between my comic book guardian. I don't know what to call my comic book character now. How about comic book co-star? No, not co-star. That's too much. What best supporting character? Okay, whatever that role is. I'm working on being able to point by point go through it all. But without telling the story entirely in one shot, I'll never do it. I don't want to just trickle out stupid moments of without the whole narrative, the story doesn't carry the resolution of lesson that I've learned. It's that simple. So I'm working on it, but tonight's not the night. Number 2, I also have not explained at all why I'm doing this. And everything that I do is to document in some way, shape, or form the experience I'm having as a human being in this meat suit at this time on this planet. I believe we are at a momentous point in cosmic history that will forever want interpretation of exactly what happened while we were here. I don't know why I think this, but I've always known I was here to witness something and that I was here to present the case for what happened as an actual participant in the event. And I suppose so are you. But to me, that gives me the sort of need to, as much as possible, figure out why we're where we are. And since that is an impossible question to answer, I use this diatribe to spit out where I've been, where I'm going, and what it all means to have gone from a staunch data-driven atheist who was convinced this world was chaotic and random to somebody who now believes I have a purpose that sits so far outside of myself that I don't even try to see it. I just try to abide by it. And this has brought my life a sense of closure and meaning, as well as destiny, that I never even pretended could be real. And yet, as I've said, the last 5 years, I couldn't be happier, more content, more at peace with exactly who I've been and what I've done. And for the first 50 years of life, I couldn't have even pulled that off for a week, let alone for half a decade. So in sharing this transitional shift, I hope to both illuminate how it's possible, as well as share with those who feel dark or incomplete that you have pathways out. There are so many solutions, but the number one solution is for you to start believing in yourself and loving yourself entirely. Once you've done that, the rest of it just falls into place. So I'm going to leave you with one question, and then I'm going to address, what am I making too much noise right now? Probably. I think the generation that is Gen Z, I need to start seeing their potential more than their downside. And their downside is only because they've been thrust into a situation of experimentation technologically that they don't deserve, and that they'll be the first guinea pigs with which we can assess the true damage of what has happened by taking our individual expression and consolidating it into various apps and online gateways. And while that's turning us into very similar people with very similar gripes and very similar outlooks, it is only a condition of how much influence the phone has become for everyone that is living in the United States of America. If the phones all go away, that problem no longer exists. So in that way, it's not their fault, but there's also no solution other than for them to put their phones down, which is not going to happen. So when I think about, well, what else can I see as optimistic about this generation? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the kindness with which they see the universe. It's a new level of acceptance, tolerance, and reverence for the individual expression of exactly who you are in whatever manner that manifests, whether that be sexual orientation or activity preference or educational inclination. It doesn't matter. Be you and be appreciated for the effort that it is to be you. And that's one thing about them that I hope never goes away. On pause. That said, the disdain that Gen Z looks at generations before them, particularly the boomers, but somewhat my generation X and even the millennials, as if they are obstacles in the way of an enlightened earth, is a bit not so kind. So that side of them, I believe, is more vocal and available than it has been for the generations behind them. Even though every generation looks at that which has been laid by the generations previously as somewhat absurd or counterproductive with the advancement of society, as it were, in the new dawn of their day, there's an uncooperativeness to them and a sense of superiority that I hadn't seen yet in the generation that I was a part of or the millennials behind me. Now, they did get fucked the most by the boomers and the apathy of my generation and the lack of boundaries in the generations subsequently. But that's still not a reason for them to think they have the solutions or that the generations ahead of them aren't working to make things better in their own ways. And as unrecognizable as the internet generation will be from the boomer generation, the transition generations of Gen X and millennials, if we're not all going to cooperate and come together on this, I don't think the problems we're facing can be solved. So, as much as I love the kindness and overall acceptance that Gen Z shows toward each other, a little bit more of that up the chain might serve them well in the long run, even though they'll never be able to afford a house or fucking dinner because, god damn it, what happened to the goddamn economy? Right? That's what Gen Z has to face the worst. So, on that note, but at least you won't waste your money going to college like I did. Pause. Unpause. Also, okay, why didn't I show up at my dad's birthday celebration, I suppose is a good word. Well, because this situation has put a strain on my relationship with my mother that I didn't see coming. One that I think I was letting somewhat accrue without confronting her, and having allowed it to now boil over, well, I feel like I have some coming correct to do. But only in that I should never have let this thing linger into an explosive potential situation like I have. So, rather than in any way regret the actions that I might take or might be taken around me on my father's first birthday since passing, not to mention all the other emotional contamination this weekend portended, well, I thought it better that I isolate and give everyone else a chance to not need to deal with me. And that's what I did. Which is why my final question here, well, let's just say the question that I have been most posing the public around me lately is, what would it take for you, uniquely you, the person I'm speaking to here, what would it take for you to believe that you're the Messiah? Like, what would have to happen for you to go from, no fucking way, dude, I am the last person that's going to be picked as the Messiah, believe me, to, holy fucking shit, this shit's getting real. Am I the fucking Messiah? Because I'm starting to think I might be. What would it take? Would you have to be spoken to by a burning bush? Would you have to be taken to heaven by God and shown the secrets of the universe? What would it take for you to think, okay, I guess I am here to save humanity? And don't tell me you haven't thought about it. And if you haven't thought about it, well, what the fuck's wrong with you? Seriously, maybe you're the Messiah. Oh, Pauls. All right. Having dilly-dallied around a bit here, we're at 11:50. Oh, God, we're 11:59 now on the 60th birthday of my comic book guardian, we'll say role to be determined. If I'm the main character in the story, she would be the secondary character of somewhat interest, that whose narrative I have no interest in describing. So I'm just going to say, happy 60th birthday. You have directly impacted my life in ways that are both mystical and real. And I don't know why that role is yours to play, but I suppose if I were going to learn lessons of these kinds, you might be the only voice to which I would pay attention. So, thank you for making me feel a more complete sense of who I am. I came to doubt myself in ways, thanks to behaviors that were between us, and then came to know myself and stronger senses of solution-oriented John through the process of overcoming the challenges we created. And if that means that the next role is for us to never speak again, which is, I hope, where we're at, then this will be the last time I ever even address you. But for now, know that the impact you had on my life will always resonate across everything I do from this day forward. So, in that way, well, maybe you're the main character.